Today, I'm going to talk about the spend management. So, how optimize your procurement strategy using a powerful spend analytics tools, and use then all your data to make sure you can get a real visualization of your spend. And so, once you get your spend with all your categorizations, you can move to a procurement strategy. So just very briefly, let's introduce myself and the company. So myself, I'm Olivier Odino. I'm French. You can hear that with my accent. I'm actually based in Toronto, in Canada, uh, like for 3 years now. But originally, Sourcing Force is based in France, in the city of Lyon, and we moved to Canada just to cover North America about 2 years ago now, and we are expanding our business across the world. So mainly in Europe, actually in France, in Switzerland, Belgium. We also tend to be well represented in North America, but it's still the beginning. We have quite a great team here in Toronto working on that. And we have many support teams in either in French language or English language, based in Tunisia, Madagascar, and India, that can support all your activity, and especially what we talk about today, meaning the spend management and how you should clean site your data. So Sourcing Force is powered by a company called BuyMadeEasy. Sourcing Force is the name of the software. We have quite a big growth still. The foundation in 2012, so nearly 9 years now of growth. We quite double our turnover. Last year was pretty fine. The COVID, of course, impact us like you, I believe, in our business, but it's pretty good. We are a team of 30 people around the world, really focused on procurement. So meaning that we have really a team of experts in procurement area that can support a lot of range of expertise for our customers. And we reached last year roughly 30 million euros turnover. In dollars, it's maybe like 60 or 16 or 17 million dollars turnovers. Um, Actually, Sourcing Force is driving about 200 million euros transactions within the platform, and it represents roughly 100,000 orders done in the platform and deal with suppliers. And that means about 20,000 active suppliers in the platform that receive an order and onboard into the platform to manage all operation regarding the transactions. We deal with many big companies and smaller companies too. Of course, I just show you the biggest one because you might know them, but we also work with small and medium companies. So it can be any kind of activities like pharmaceutical, as you can see, automotive, aeronautics, energy, maintenance, industry, but also services. And we can cover all kind of very specific procurement activities depending the sectors. All right, so that was just a brief introduction about myself and my company. So I'm the founder. Personally, I worked more than 10 years in procurement department within some big US companies like General Electric, United Technologies. So I'm well aware about all pain you might have to build your spend analytics. And this is why really we build that kind of platform to help you create a very powerful and efficient spend management system. All right, so Sourcing Force is globally a full source to pay solution. So meaning that you can onboard within Sourcing Force with one module or several modules. And you can pick up every module that you'd like to implement at ready your time frame. So there is no obligation to take the full implementation of Sourcing Force modules. You can use, for example, today only the spend management modules. But just be aware that if you start with one module, it's very easy and everything is interconnected to use other modules. So if you use then the contract management, RFX, SRM, or the e-procurement modules, you can interface every data, and so your reporting will be more and more powerful and precise and in real time. So that's very important. So now let's begin really the topic of today regarding spend management. I'm assuming that in your company, you might have exactly the same vision of your spend, meaning that you have big suppliers that you well know them, you manage them quite every day, and that means this is all the strategic spend that represents roughly 70% of your spend, but only for 10% of the number of suppliers. So you know them very in depth, in fact, because you are in charge of them quite every day. Then you have a lot of other suppliers that maybe you are not aware. The other one, I call that the catalog suppliers, meaning that might be big suppliers, but with all articles that can be found in a catalog that represent in general about 15% of the spend and also 15% of your total suppliers, number of suppliers. Then we go more in the tail spend. I call that the non-standard, meaning that this is generally one-time supplier, but for high volume. It can be like events, for example, it can be a good maintenance one time. That represents generally 10% of your spend, so it's quite low, but a lot of suppliers, 30% of your suppliers are non-standard, meaning 1 or 2 times suppliers a year of transactions. And then you have really the tail spend, what I call that also the spot buy spend, meaning this is only 5% of your spend, but this is a huge number of suppliers, roughly 45% of your total suppliers. And the main difficulty for a procurement department is how to control 90% of suppliers representing only 30% of the total spend. And you can do that only if you have the ability to manage your spend, to know exactly what you are spending and with which suppliers, who is spending that, and what the process is within your company, and maybe all your affiliates working on that kind of spend. So that's very important to look on that kind of spend. And I'll show you a methodology to create your own spend analytics, your spend mapping, and then the visualization in BI tools. And I show you, of course, just a demonstration of the Sourcing Force module. So you can see that within less than 1 hour, you can have the methodology and the ability to start right now with a powerful module. All right, so main objective of a spend management. The first one is how to optimize all expenses, meaning that you should identify all spend, but also all people involved in the purchasing process. So this is step one. Step two, in terms of objectives, is once you get all the spend, is your main objective is to identify saving opportunities. Identifying opportunities of saving, but also risk, regardless of all your spends. And so you can customize your procurement strategies based on your spend, based on the number of suppliers, and based maybe on the processes. And so this is why also you should look at how to optimize your spending processes. Because if you can collect all the data and you know that you should be able to make a huge savings on that kind of segment or categories, if you don't have the correct processes to control and to streamline all the processes, you might maybe work for nothing because you won't be able to track your spend and make sure that the strategy you put in place is really available for all your stakeholders within your company. So identify area of improvement in your spending processes, and so take actions to make sure that you can implement correctly new processes and more efficient processes. The fourth objective is to be able to put something autonomous, meaning an autonomous maintenance is for you to be able to automate your analysis, meaning that actually you have several tools, and I show you Sourcing Force, that can be able to automate the spend extraction from your ERP, for example, then the spend categorization for each suppliers or each transactions. And so your spend mapping is up to date every day or every week or every month, depending how you can configure that. But you don't have to wait 1 year to collect a full extraction of the previous year. You are able now really to manage your spend on a daily basis. And that's very important to focus, especially on that kind of time with COVID period, that you have a huge peak of spend and a huge drop of your spend. And so you should be able to manage at least on a monthly basis your spend. And the fourth one is what I call the intelligent classifications. That means how we can automatically make like an intelligence, artificial intelligence that can map your suppliers directly one by one. So you should just, I show you that, but you should learn the software how you'd like to categorize your suppliers. And once you do that, you create rules, and the module is able then for the future to learn about your rules and apply all classification directly without manual intervention. So that's the 5 main objectives of a spend management module and how you can improve really your procurement department. So how to really implement a spend management strategy? On my point of view, there are at least 5 steps. Just to start a spend management, the first step is really to collect data, meaning that you should identify all the data you'd like to export, to extract from your ERP or other systems, and to be able to ask your IT or your finance to say, okay, guys, I need to make a full spend management and I need to collect all those kind of data from your ERP. So could you help me regarding that? So we will focus on all those 5 steps in the next slides. The second step is defining a taxonomy. A taxonomy, in fact, is all the category and subcategories you'd like to apply at your supplier level or maybe at your transaction level. So you should develop a segmentation, what I call that a taxonomy, that is very linked to your industry, to your company. So generally, this is customized, but you could also use some standard like E-Class or UNSPSC, and you can also maybe focus on just part of them to be more reliable within all your affiliates. The third step is to classify your suppliers. So the categorizations, meaning that you have now to create rules to assign your categories to your spans or your suppliers. And on that one, generally, you can do that with Excel files. But if you're working with thousands and thousands of transactions, maybe your computer is not as powerful to manage that correctly. So this is why if you use an online tool, the BI tools like Sourcing Force, you should be able to create rules and map your supplier instantly, meaning immediately you can map your suppliers to one or several categories. Then the fourth step is to automate, meaning create some automations to collect your data. For example, most of my customers collect data on a monthly basis. So we extract data from the ERP, we integrate it directly in your spend modules. And then because you create some rules for classifications, every time you integrate a new bunch of data, all your new suppliers are automatically classified in the correct categories. And you have only the few ones that should be done manually. But the most of the job have been done with the EA automatically. And then the last steps of fifth step is the spend mapping, meaning that you have to analyze your spend, identify opportunities of savings visually, meaning that this is how you can use really your data. If you remember, you collect raw data from your ERP, then you go through a powerful spend management system that cleans out all your data. And once all your database is clean, then you can map and visualize. And I show you some examples of visualizations, all your data. And your main objective is really to create a strategy, to communicate that strategy to your stakeholders, to your board of directors, and make sure that you can execute them, your strategy based on real data and really clean data. So let's see some more details about all those 5 steps. All right, so first one is ready to collect the data. Collecting the data means you have several kind of data. If you are working in a big company, that means also that you have several affiliates working with several ERP, and maybe not ERP, sometimes it's Excel files, sometimes it's just CRM. So you have to really try to collect all those data, put them all together, and make sure that you can sort out each data on a monthly basis. And I show you that is pretty easy if you have the right methodology. Another question generally is where and who should I ask to get those data? Generally, you should ask your IT department or maybe, and also the finance department. They get all the data you'd like. And if you like some other kind of data regarding, for example, the delivery, the quality, maybe you should ask also your purchasing department, your logistic department to collect other kind of data. What is the most important is to make sure that you collect most of all the raw data in one single point. One single point means, for example, one server. So they put all the data, one file, or every files, generally TXT files or CSV files or Excel files, but everything is put in one server, and if possible, it's updated on a monthly basis. So just have a look on what kind of data you should collect. So this is just an example of data you should collect to be able to create quite powerful spend mapping. So let's say we like to collect at least the name of your organization. This is especially convenient if you have several affiliates. So you can collect for each affiliate their names, and so you can make them some filter sorting with the name. Then you can have the name of the subsidiaries or the offices, the name of the requestor, the country where based your subsidiaries, the city maybe, maybe the country of delivery. So you can map all your logistics span based on either the span, meaning the supplier country, but also the delivering country. Something quite important is also to get all information regarding the transactions, so transaction numbers. Maybe you get a description of the transaction that might help you also to make a good categorization, the date of the transactions, the cost center, type of transactions, meaning maybe it's sourcing, maybe it's regularizations, etc. Accounting allocations, could be the GL account, for example. The amount, of course, and make sure you collect the currency, so you can make sure that also you get the correct amount and all with a standard currency, so one single currency. Is it a spend addressable or not? So I put that addressable means that some purchases are not really in charge for the procurement department. For example, grants, taxes, wages. Most of the time, procurement department don't deal with that kind of spend. So make sure that when we collect your data and your spend, make sure that you have some addressable and negotiable kind of spend, and you exclude the other one. You can collect it just for information, but generally you won't be able to make any actions on them. Then you get the payment terms, and that's quite interesting also to optimize your financial aspect, your treasury within your company. Exchange rate, especially if you use several currencies. Invoice numbers, supplier numbers also. So this column is one of the most important. Make sure you collect the supplier ERP number. This is a unique code for each of your suppliers. This is really important to create a correct spend mapping. Then the name of the supplier, of course. If you could try to collect also the legal number. You know, when a company register and it's been created, they have one single and unique number in the country. And it's very helpful because if you get that kind of information, we can also collect for any like open database, any kind of information, such as the turnover of the supplier, address of the supplier, credit scores, etc. But this is only based on that kind of unique legal ID number. Supplier country, type of supplier, is it industry, is it distribution, is it a service supplier, maintenance suppliers, and also maybe put like if it's an investment, meaning the transaction is investment, just make sure that you can split the operational and capex investment. So it's also good to make that kind of differentiation. If you have any questions regarding all my slides, do not hesitate to ask your question on the chat. Okay, I will reply right away or at the end of the presentation, depending if it's on the focus of my slide. All right. So the second step is defining a taxonomy. This one is not necessarily easy to create because if you start with your new company, you don't know exactly all the category and subcategories that should be used for your spend mapping. But it's one of the key facts. You can't continue and work and create a spend management matrix if you don't have a good taxonomy. So a taxonomy globally is to create categories and subcategories. It can be up to 4 subcategories. So I call that, you see here, the main categories. I show you one example, subcategories and a segment and subsegment. Why it's so important? Because if you create correctly your categories, you will be able to extract your spend on a market level actions, meaning that at the end of the course, for example, here, if your main category is splitting by direct and indirect spend, and then you have a subcategories called IT and telecom, you can create many segment and subsegment. For example, telecom, hardware, IT services. And if you put all your suppliers and spend in the correct sub-segment or segment, that means that in that kind of spend, you have an homogeneous market of suppliers, and you can launch a tender based on that volume of transaction, and you are confident that when you communicate to your suppliers that you get the correct amount, total amount spent within your company, and it makes you more confident to negotiate your new contract. And you can do that for here is more related to indirect spend, IT, telecom, marketing, but it's also important to map your direct spend. Like this is just 2 examples, power supplies and fasteners. So you'll be able to split in your presentation what is really the general expenses and what is the production sides. And if each of those sides, you can focus clearly on what's the most important. And this is how you'll be able to create a new strategy. And I show you some key indicators that you can extract from that kind of information. So the third step is to categorize your supplier spend. So this is not an easy step because the biggest suppliers, of course, you know them and you know what they sell to you, what you buy, what kind of product or services. So it's quite easy. You can do that like mostly automatically or but very quickly at least. What is more difficult is really to assign categories to smaller suppliers that are completely unknown to you because there are some strange name, maybe they are on a foreign countries. And so on that kind of suppliers, you can identify your suppliers based on their internet website or based on the transactions descriptions. And you can do that manually. So in some case, you should do that manually. If you do that correctly in online spend modules, what's important is once you did it once, it's working for all life. You don't have every year to categorize again and again this supplier because it's done once and then it's automatically updated with all the new spend you should integrate in the module. Then you have also the automatic way, meaning if you get the legal ID, for example, of your suppliers, um, the, the, the system would be able also to suggest you the best category for this supplier. Uh, it could be also based on keyword, for example, or on cost center. So that kind of information is very critical if you'd like to make something more automatic and autonomous in terms of spend management. And once you are able to categorize all your suppliers with each good category, could be several categories for one supplier if you like to focus on the transaction level, you can get your supplier in one category, several suppliers in other categories. And then once you did that, sometimes it takes quite a long time to do it, but this is so powerful then to create your procurement strategy. So then next steps is really to automatize really your spend management and get you reporting in a real-time basis. And this is very important because most of organizations, sometimes they don't do at all a spend management missions product. But if they do that once a year, meaning that they collect the data, for example, in February, then they have to clean all the data, so it means February, March. In March, they start to create their strategy, April, and then they show the strategy to the board of directors in May. So meaning that in May, maybe in June, they present a strategy based on data that are at least 1 year old. And if you take a strategy based on data that are too old, like at least 1 year, maybe more than 1 year old, you can be really efficient in your error fix. So make sure that you really work on a real-time data, especially in that kind of crisis, a pandemic crisis, where your spend may be going down and up, depending if you're in lockdown or not. So make sure that you can extract automatically spend from your ERP. And then we can create cron task to collect all those data automatically at a certain date in the month or during the week, etc., to collect and update the spend analytics automatically. Then you should automatize also the data cleanup, meaning that every time you'd like to clean your data and you have to categorize your suppliers, you can create new rules. And those rules can be applied automatically to your new spend, incoming spend from your ERP. So meaning that you have only to map the new supplier that the intelligence, the artificial intelligence were not able to map automatically. And it's very a huge time savings to work on that way. Then the third one is to visualize your spend. And this is why we suggest some BI tools to make sure that it's really easy for you to create spend mapping with every graph and every I don't know, world map, every table that are updated automatically, and you can switch every kind of filters automatically, and everything is on real time. You can share that kind of visualization. So this kind of tool is really powerful to communicate your procurement expertise within your company and make sure that everyone knows exactly what you are doing and why you are doing that kind of project. So that comes to me to another one is finally, what kind of key performance indicators you should collect from that kind of spend mapping. For me, there's at least 3 kinds of indicators. The first one is to have a real global review of your spend. And with that, you can review all your spend with all your company, including all your affiliates around the world, and make sure that you can know exactly the spend by categories, if the spend is addressable or not, how much you can spend on your supplier panel list, meaning the preferred suppliers. And if you have some, what we call also non-compliance spend, meaning you already have a strategy on the supplier, but you see that maybe 40% of your spend is not going to the right supplier. So you can see that already in one view, and you can also split that by category, maybe per employees, to focus exactly where it doesn't work correctly. So you can split the spend by entities, by region, by cost center, by period, meaning that you see if there is any trend in your spend. So if you see that there is a huge spend in September or in January, you can focus on and make sure that you anticipate that kind of spend. You can see also if all your stakeholders go through your procurement solution, for example, and if they make a correct order or if they ask services or product to suppliers without an official order. And you can map also all the intra-group span to see if you leverage your internal affiliate expertise. Then the second focus is related to the suppliers. If you can know correctly your suppliers and how much you spend with each of your suppliers, you can make a great analysis. For example, you can make a Pareto analysis, meaning who are my top 20% representing 80% of my spend. You know the spend per supplier, and you know all the spend per supplier, not only one affiliate, all the spend worldwide within your company, number of suppliers, and especially number of suppliers per categories. So if you see one category where you have a lot of different suppliers, that means that your concentration, your negotiation power is not well done, and you have to focus on this. This is an area of improvement. You can split by ABC typology, meaning class A, class B, class C suppliers, by categories, transaction price per suppliers, payment terms, number of invoices per suppliers, how much you spend on low-cost countries, but also maybe how much you pay on diversity suppliers, which is very important today also regarding ecological, regarding local aspect. And the third KPI indicators for me that's important is also regarding the contract. Make sure that all the contracts you sign with your suppliers are well applied. And that means the percentage of suppliers under contract compared to the total number of suppliers. Let's see the renewal to come. So you can anticipate any new negotiation or maybe end the contract and apply the period notice. And also do not forget the year-end discount, the volume rebate, for example. Sometimes most of the company just forget to ask their supplier the volume rebate at the end of the year. Why? Generally because the procurement professionals that work moved to another company, and the new one didn't have a look on the contract and didn't know that there are volume rebates. So those are just few examples of indicators you can extract once your data are clean and you can visualize all those kind of data. So here's a few examples of reporting you can make with clean spend data. So I give you an example right away with a full demonstration on how it works and why it's really easy to implement. So this is a few examples. Let me now switch to our module, so Sourcing-Force module. If you have any questions, again, do not hesitate to ask in the chat box. I can reply right away now. Now we move to a demonstration. All right, let me just switch. All right, okay, I hope you can still see my screen. Actually, with the full screen, so it will be easier for you. Perfect. Oh, sorry. Yeah. All right. So first of all, you should define your taxonomy, meaning you should create your categories and subcategories. So here you have a full system to create that based on either UNSPSC or E-class content standard categories. If you'd like just to copy an existing categories, you just have to select it. Okay, I like to select that one with all the subcategories. I'd like to copy that and save it. And that means that you will create directly a taxonomy really customized to your own organization. And here you can see there is several subcategories, segment, and subsegments. So you can really see all the details of your categorization. Of course, you can delete some of them. You can also create specific based really on your industry. Once you have done this job to make sure that you get your own classifications, then you can move to the spend management module, this one. When you log in on the spend management module, you have all the ability to understand how it works. Here you see there is a 7-step process to guide you from the very beginning, collecting the data, to the very end, meaning that create cron job, meaning automatize your spend analytics. So let's say we make an example. So here, for example, I'm new. I like to import and configure a new spend extractions. So I go to configurations. Here I can configure several kind of configuration for my extraction. So for example, if you are able to collect for 2 or 3 different ERPs within your organization, but the format of the extraction is not the same, it doesn't care for the system because you are able to create each configuration per extraction, per ERP extraction. So just collect your extraction for your ERP, then you create a new one. I'll just show you one example here. For example, I created this configuration for my extractions. I say, okay, I collected by, it's an Excel file. So this is this format. They put a dash for the date separator, and the format of my date is year, month, and date. So I configure that. Then, of course, when you collect your extraction, you have several columns. And so you should have to map your different columns. And it's very easy also, because here you get all the standard information you should collect to make a spend analytics. So here you have several kind of information, the geographical scope, cost center, transaction types, etc. So you just have to select the one you are able to extract from your ERP, and then you map the column of your Excel files that refer to that information. So you see it's very easy. If you get, okay, I like to make the transaction ID, and I know that in my Excel file, this is column number 4. So you just have to select the column number 4, and the same for all kind of data. Once you did that, it's pretty easy because you get your full configuration for one ERP, and then you can move to the upload system. The upload system means you have to select your spend, your extraction from your ERP. So I just select that one. Then you upload it. If everything's fine, the system will say, okay, now we'd just like to know, okay, which configuration should we use to extract the data and integrate them into the spend module. So here I just select my second configuration, spend demo webinar. I select next. Now our robot just analyze all your data and represent all your Excel file data in one way. So you can see all the spam coming from your Excel file. So you see if everything is fine, you can have a look. You can also directly map some categories directly from here. And you see, we can see all kind of categories. Validated. And then if everything fine, you just say, okay, I like to save it permanently because it's fine. And you have to choose if you like to add only new suppliers. Generally, you do that if it's an update of your spend, or if you like to remove all previous data and replace that with the new suppliers within your extraction. So for the example, I take the removing. So it means that we remove my previous data and then update the new data. And so you see, we come from home, where you see all the guide, configuration, import data. Here you can manage all the categories. And then here you find all the list of data coming from your ERP. And from that one, you can see all the transaction details. So you see general ledgers, you can see everything you have been imported. And you can categorize either by suppliers or by transaction. This is why you can see there is category 1, 2, 3, 4. This is based on the supplier one. And spend category 1, 2, 3, 4 is meaning if you like to map a spend, a category, sorry, only at the transaction level. So it's very convenient for you because it's for you, you can have spend analytics very precise at the supplier level and within your supplier to see all subcategories. Now, so you integrated all your spend, so you have also to categorize your suppliers and your spend. So you can have a look here, list of supplier data. This is the detail of all suppliers that have been imported from your ERP. So you see here, there is 61 suppliers, for example. And you can sort them by span using Pareto too. So from the biggest to the lowest supplier. So here, for example, we can take the first one. We see that we spend 125,000 US dollars. And then you say, okay, for that supplier, I'd like to map that kind of category. So you just select your category, for example, tools, gas powered. Then you get the subcategory, for example, the needler gas powered. And then the third one, cold needler. Here I didn't configure a fourth one, so that's fine to me. I select that. And I can do that for all my suppliers like that, one by one. And it's quite convenient because you can do that online. Every time you categorize the suppliers, of course, these suppliers is also categorized in your spend data. So if here you look at your suppliers and you like to know here, this one, you are confident that all spend lines have been categorized with your main categories. And at that time, you are able, if you like, to make a subcategories line by line, sorry, to have an in-depth view of your spends. So this is an example to map supplier one by one. But now, for example, if you like now to map in bulk some of your suppliers, you have a very powerful advanced data cleansing. And here you can create rules. For example, here, okay, rules one, I like, for example, to select all my suppliers with that contain the name constructions. I like to see the results, so I just click see the results. And here I see there is 3 suppliers corresponding to my filter, to my condition. And for those one, I like to map category that spend level, supplier level, spend level, or supplier and spend level. And then I'm able to choose, okay, this one is, I don't know, machine devices, category as machine paper industries, machine paper others. And then I'm able to create a rule that all suppliers with the name including constructions, and you can create conditions with all fields within your extraction. So you can create very powerful and customized rules using any kind of sub rules, etc. And then you say, okay, I like to apply to all those suppliers. Okay, it's done. So meaning that those 3 suppliers in the whole extraction have been moved to this category. Then you can save these rules. And so next time, for example, let's move on. I'm coming back. Next time you say, okay, I like to use an existing rules. I want to take again my rules number 1. Okay, I see the different conditions. Okay, choose conditions. Then I can see the results. I see again that, and everything is automatized. And we can use that kind of conditions also to automatize directly when you update your database. So here, for example, here is based, for example, on a cost center. Let's say I take my list of data. I see, for example, let's say general ledger, office supplies. So I take that. I go to my data clean side up here, general ledgers. Let me find it. Here is it. Contain office supplies. see results. So here I see all suppliers where a transaction name with a general ledger containing office supplies, and I see that there are 7 suppliers. And I can say, okay, only one, and that one. I'd like to maybe add the IT provider, whatever. So it's very convenient because you can create as many rules as you want. And then you just have to apply that directly, for example, only to selected suppliers. And all those suppliers are that one. Maybe I made a mistake on the category, and never mind. So you can really automatize all your classifications. And also what's important regarding the automations is you can create as many rules as you want, and you can create cron job. Cron job is very powerful because you can say, okay, I like to configure that configuration coming from SAP, for example, and SAP will put my extraction once a month. So you select, okay, one per month, the first of every month. You put here the URL of the Excel files on your server. You validate the URL, and every month, the first of the month, the system will collect automatically your spend extraction and make sure that your spend data is up to date and clean. So this is really an easiest way for all your procurement team to manage their spend. And of course, when everything is clean, then you can move ready to that kind of reporting. And here you see, this is an example, spend overview. You can have a look on all your spend based on periodicity, based on regions, based on each countries. For example, you can create any kind of reportings. Is it my spend addressable or not? Here I see all my spend by GL account, by commodity, sub-commodities, by cost center. Is it my spend coming from a panel potential or blacklisted supplier, for example? And then you can select also the periodicity. If you like only to analyze the previous month, you just have to select the previous month. If you like then to, okay, I'd like to focus only to one of my affiliates, let's say my base affiliates, everything will be updated based on your filter. It could be by region, countries, suppliers, commodities. Just let's say, for example, we'd like to focus on tools. Let's say I focus on that one. Everything again here is updated by on my commodity, and everything is interconnected. So everything is autonomous and real-time based. Then this is my KPI number 1, spend overview. Now I'd like to see my vendor landscapes. So here's based on the same database. I see here the concentration of my suppliers. So I see my supplier category A, strategic suppliers. Here, what I call the catalog suppliers, the non-standard suppliers, and the tail spend, meaning spot buy spend, and all your very small suppliers. You can see more details base of your suppliers. You see, for example, they are here, for example, there is some in Indonesia, some in China. You can have a look on the payment terms. This is also very important. You see here, for example, that for that category, sorry, it's in French, it means tools. For that category, you have 24 different vendors. So meaning that for only $136,000, you have more than 20 different suppliers. So your concentration is very bad. So you know that here maybe there is an area of savings, an opportunity to optimize it. Maybe not, depending on your company, but at least you can visualize that. You can communicate on that with all your internal stakeholders, and you can share your presentation to anyone that like to have a look on it. And they can't modify anything. They just have the opportunity to look on it, to work on it, maybe only on their parameters, to make sure that you don't communicate confidential information. There is some information you can see here, sub-commodities, again, the panel, potential blacklisted, transaction with or without PO. Here you can have a table with the country, name of supplier, the span, number of orders, average amount of per orders. Again, all the filters here. And again, all those kind of graphs are already customized. So you have to choose what you want to show. Then another example is a commodity profile. Here you see, for example, that one commodity is maybe like 2/3 of your total spend. Then you can see all the other categories. This is another view of your categories per number of vendors. So you see here, for example, this one has a lot of vendors per spend addressable. So you see, okay, this one is addressable, but one of the spend is not addressable. Subcategory is the same. And all your filters, you can see all the total spend, total number of suppliers, etc. So there are already an infinite way to create reporting and indicators really based on what is your focus today. And it's really easy to modify it. You don't have to be developer to do that. You just have to click here to modify, and you can modify by yourself. If you like to add a new graph, you just add a new graph. Like to put, for example, a new map, you take your new map, you post it on your reporting, and everything is based on your clean database based on Sourcing Force module. So this is really easy to use. You can communicate on it. I think I show you what I like to show you for today. It's nearly 1 hour now. I'm speaking with you. If you like, if you have any questions on what I'm showing you, do not hesitate to communicate to me. I see Michelle one question. You can also add additional rules for you cleansing. Yeah, you can add as many rules as you want. So if I'm just going back to here to the rules, here you create one rule, but you can create as many rules as you want. If you see here, I see some few examples. So this is the way you can create an artificial intelligence way of categorize your suppliers, because every time you have a new rule, you can create it, and then it is stored in the robot systems, and the system can apply it directly on all kind of data. So that's why it's very powerful to create that, because you can have a look on everything moving forward. Do you have any other questions? You can, if you like, I can try to, yeah, just maybe put your question on the chat. Can you put more than one rules in the same condition? Yeah, of course. If, for example, here you said you like to select, for example, let's say the general ledgers contain office supplies, and then you like also to add a rules, for example, for the transaction, the supplier name, and then let's see the rule. You say I have no idea about the supplier. Let's say the same name to see if there is one. Oh, there is no one. Just let me find one. Yeah, for example, you say, okay, I like to have only suppliers with a new rules containing supplier name. My supplier name as it was there. Yeah. So this is two rows in the same two conditions, in fact, in the same rows. See results, and then you can have the only the one that you like to select. So, and you can create sub rules also with an and an or. So yeah, you just have to choose. In fact, if, for example, here I selected and, but if I select or, maybe I might have different results. You see here, I can see more results because the hypothesis only if I like to see all with office supplies, but also all with the name actions. Any other questions regarding the spend management system? Maybe you can share also how you deal with your spend management today to see maybe how we can improve that. If you already use another tool, if you're using Excel file to create your spend analytics. Okay, so if you don't have any other questions, then we can end this webinar. Make sure that also, of course, when you finish this, the spend management is only the very beginning of your procurement journey. You know, once you get your spend management, you get a really good reporting. You should move then to create your strategy, and that means maybe get a Krajic matrix, online constraint matrix, risk assessment, SWOT analysis, Porter 5 forces. All those kind of tools are also linked to the spend management. And once you finish your strategy, of course, you have to move to all the other steps of your procurement methodology, meaning create the specification for an RFX, source the suppliers, create and launch your RFX, negotiate, sign contracts, and control via e-procurement systems. So really keep in mind that Sourcing Force is really able to focus on all the processes in one tool, everything linked, but you can also just start with one module. And in terms of price, you get all the price online in our website, sourcing-force, sourcing-force.com. So you have all information, and you can contact me directly over the phone or by email. It's very convenient. I'll be happy to discuss with you about these modules and maybe other modules. Thank you very much. If you have any other questions, do not hesitate to contact me in a couple of today or in a couple of days, and we can arrange another demonstration. Thank you. Bye bye.